Hello, welcome. It's day 171 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tom Nyback, and we're here talking about black issues in America, looking at politics, economics. Hopefully you're getting the idea now. I've said it over 100 times, and I'm going to keep saying it. Repetition, I think, is going to help solidify the argument in our minds. So having said that, up first, let me welcome our new subscriber. Uh, just stick around and see if you like it. Comment where you can. I love feedback, pros and cons I get here. And also, if you want to be off of the private email list, that's just a few strokes, and I won't be offended. I know that in today's world, a lot of voices and opportunities are um, vying for our attention. So I know I'm just one small voice. I get it. Now, having said that, getting back to my introduction, two big thoughts have really emerged and solidified in this project here at Racial Change. And then number one is for the mind of America, the American thought, black versus white. Because blacks and whites, we're having two different experiences. We occupy in the same space, but our experiences in general are vastly different. So, having said that, uh, for that first thought, there are two ideas contained in it as far as the mind of America. Number one, first is for the black mind. Is black culture, black experience, black mentality still behaving, performing in a very slave-oriented way? Or is the impact of centuries, hundreds of years of slavery, um, still holding sway, still informing black behavior? Now, we've talked about a few things here that we're going to review again, I'm sure. Big one is meritorious manumission and how that, um, you know, how that process, how that psychological conditioning enacted against black people has left a mark to make black people skeptical of one another and have um, issues in supporting black community. Very subtle thing, but very powerful as well. We dissect meritorious manumission occasionally. It might be time for a review. So things like that in America, and just slavery itself. Always, we've in a sense been kidnapped. We've always seen white power and control of America and has its tentacles around the globe with great uh, ability to influence, and a lot of interesting things go on in the world under white domination. So is the black experience still living out a conditioned response to all that? Now, the second thought, the second part of the mind of America is for white folks. Flip side of the same coin. Do white folks continue on an expectation of privilege, power, um, of movement, freedom of movement in the nation and the world? Some things to think about in that respect. And then my second thought is for financial literacy for black folks. Look, we had our symbols. We got a white marble statue on the Washington Mall in D.C. of Dr. King trying to, elaborate on uh, his impact. Very great work. Him and a lot of other martyrs for the black cause. But now in regards to financial literacy, we want tangible assets. It's time to get some stuff, especially land. You know, we black folks are still pilgrims in the foreign land, and we think we get such a break by paying mortgages for other people and things like that. When we don't have the resources to really self-determine our lives. You know, we are enriched. We still enrich others but ourselves. Our community, everything goes out. We don't get the feedback. It seems like all the other communities, they get the feedback. Their money goes out and it comes back. Dr. Anderson, he says, if you look at some of his videos, he says he wants to see, black dollars, black resources bounce multiple times between black folks to get that type of economic motion going. That's what happens with other groups. That's what makes them more effective, economically powerful as well. And what he means by bouncing means like, I spend my dollars effectively, to enrich black folks, but now they got to reciprocate and spend back with me. So that's some things. Maybe I should elaborate on that. But if you watch some of Dr. Anderson's videos, he talks about that consistently. On the note of Dr. Anderson, I'm informed we walked through three of his works that I've read. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. And Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, PowerNomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at PowerNomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. I just got an email from him. I sent the link to my email subscribers. You could find it as well at PowerNomics.com. Click on the Heritage Festival link. Just about August 10th. I don't know what significance that date may have, but to recognize slavery, we want to start developing some festivals around the Black American experience. Got to start somewhere. We'll see how it goes. I'm thinking about sending cards or something. See if I can plug into a community in the city in which I live. I don't know. But that's what he's working on. Behind me, you'll see hashtag us2. You'll find black women supporting one another and having their conversation. Check out Black Enough, kind of a black Facebook experience. And this is the World Wide Web. If you can't find your voice or your community, do what I did. Start your own. And get it off your chest, whatever you're feeling. That's what I did. And finally, we're looking at Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, Uncle Tom's Cabin. We have story time here. We're about due. We've been wading through some disciplined subjects and talking seriously. So it's good to let the pressure off. We have a fictional account of slave life in America. From that, we draw some illustrations of other very important issues. So that the conversation, while it's fictional and it's a story, it does get serious at times. All right, let's see what we can get into with our last few minutes here at Racial Change. We're in PowerNomics. We're talking about Black empowerment, page 31 of PowerNomics book. And let me start with this quote by Dr. Anderson. Any race that loves the world and hates itself will eventually become its own oppressor. And I think I can attest to that in my experience with addiction and stuff like that. I remember some of the early days. I was exposed to communities, shelter experiences, and I thought I was so above the other experiences of the men and women I was shoulder to shoulder with. And when I finally kind of left that episode in my life, I got to admit I was the worst perpetrator of some of the most heinous behavior that a drug addict and alcoholic can engage in. So we must be careful about where we put our attention and our affections and our emotions. Dr. Anderson's talking about the world at large, but also look at it in a microcosmic way at ourselves and at our environment. But we don't want to become that which we hate. And he's given us a warning there that in this case, loving the world and associations and things like that can turn around and be like a snake and be at our throats in a minute and become a debilitating experience. I want to recognize also that as we talk about Black empowerment, I want to recognize, we got our outliers. Just turn on the TV, watch any sports event, with the exception of maybe hockey, that has there's a different reason that it's a white sport. But most other sports are dominated by Black folks, right? So, there's some empowerment, there's money there, things like that. The game show host, and we have talk show hosts and like that, We got plenty of outliers that are very visible on our television sets and our electronic equipment every day. When I talk about empowerment, and Dr. Anderson as well, I think he's talking about in general. We want the Black experience of wealth, opulence, self-determination, and all those things to be the normal experience of Black folks in America. We don't see, right now we got a whole lot of white conditions arrayed against us, along with poor Black behavior. That's got it all, the whole thing all messed up. We want, or I'd like to see, Blacks behaving rightly, and us not being dependent on white altruism to be successful in the American system. We already earned ours. Our ancestors earned it long ago. So, we got to do them some justice in moving about freely, gathering our resources and power and control in America. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that as we continue. First, let's talk about slavery. We talked about Mitch McConnell's statements and stuff. I also wanted to say, Mitch McConnell, he seems to think that there's a time limit or like time has run out on this issue of reparations and race and things like that. But white people still continue to prosper and benefit from what their ancestors accomplished against Black people hundreds of years ago through history. So there's no statute of limitations on getting Black people rightfully what they're owed from America. Dr. Anderson, he says slavery created race-based monopolies And I look at banking, look at railroads, gathering natural resources. You know, you know, black people in general, we're always carrying somebody else's water. If you're familiar with that term, we got our hat in our hand and we're carrying somebody else's water, you know, as they get into management, controlling resources, and things like that. That's a big problem. You know, we're not self-determined. I've been using that term more, uh, because the whites came in, took land from the Native Americans, and took free labor from black people, you know, and they stayed locked and frozen on top of that position, and um, they're not trying to give it up either. You know, they need that stratification, that hierarchy, so they can appear wealthy and in control and right and everything. That whole slavery experience, it left blacks, impotent, void of our ability to self-determine and make um, some clear strides. I don't know, for what we want to do. I work nights for a pretty good company and all that, but that's not what I would choose to do. And there's too many pitfalls and landmines that keep black people, separated from enjoying their own experience. And I think that contributes to black people behaving badly, white people solidifying their control as well. These dynamics feed on one another. I hope you understand. So we can get success. Dr. Anderson, he says, yes, success is possible. Definitely anything's possible, right? Um, One big factor is we don't have any clear goals. And this was a problem with the civil rights, the civil rights movement. We needed to get the pressure off us. We needed overt racism to disappear, or at least go in a closet somewhere. So give us some breathing room. And we made a lot of noise, and we got some amendments and some rules changed, put some stuff on the books to enable some black folks. They should have written specifically some wealth and resources in there, but we missed that. But we got a lot of symbols, separate but equal symbols. Integration it was a symbol, and remember, integration, the direction of integration. It wasn't create a homogenous society, especially education was the focus. Brown v. Board of Education, but it was take the black child and take them into a white experience. It wasn't some kind of cross current experience. It went one way. If you're familiar with electricity and familiar with direct current, that flows one way. It didn't alternate. If you plug in your lamp to the light socket in America anyway, it's alternating current. It flows in both directions. In Europe, it's different. It's direct current. You know, the energy flows in one direction. That's what integration did, and isn't it like no surprise? I mean, we're talking European colonialism. Their current runs one direction. Hence, you see integration in America running one direction. Us black folks, chasing and moving ourselves towards that white experience. Yeah. So that was some of the problem we're facing. No clear goals. We need some clear goals. Now, some barriers that keep us hung up. Um, there's many, but I'll just list Dr. Anderson's three. If you've stuck around here for now over 170 days, you'll find me talking of a lot of them, personally and in general for a black community. So he lists three. One is the historical wealth inequality between the races. We talked about that at the top of the post, about that slavery dynamic creating wealth-based monopolies in favor of white folks. You look at it. I don't know of any black old money. There might be one black old money. You know, white folks have plenty of old money out there. I'm sure. You look at some of these old institutions, um, political families, the Bushes with their oil fields. I bet we can trace some slave labor. Did they pay labor to have that wealth and access? The benefit for those early white Americans, those Europeans, and America's seminal moments was that they had free land or free labor. It was absolutely necessary if they were going to compete with the nations that wanted to have control in America and put their hooks in America. You know, that's some important aspects. So historical wealth inequality between blacks and whites historically. That's that you can find plenty of information on that. Number two is the black experience being learned and inappropriate behavior. That's an important point that we got to get with. We got to work on internally as a community. We got to start empowering our children to effectively communicate. That aspect was absent in my home. We got to get away. It's not about the grown-ups just having the power, but being ignorant and not knowing how to train up their children. We got to get away from kicking our children out of the room. We got to start being more models to our children. That's where it starts. It's how we educate the next generation. I don't scratch my head wondering why black people have high incarceration rates. Yet, yeah, the white system facilitates that to a large degree. Yet, my growing up experience was, learn life on the street. So you can't scratch your head and be angry that people are going to jail, killing off one another, selling illegal drugs, and all kinds of foolishness out there that black people do perpetuate against one another. That's a big problem, an impediment to empowerment. And three, again, mentioning a national plan, a real specific national plan. Now, Dr. Anderson, his book PowerNomics has some very detailed discussions. It's not the only one. Heck, I could think of a few and brainstorm some ideas. But it takes some unity. No one can do it alone. So there's some issues with that. The big challenge for us, we need to change black thinking, the black mentality, to bring the black mind into healthier spaces. Sometimes I think like uh, some black people are just trying to be so not white that that they think they're doing um, the black community a favor by being not white. I'm not saying adopt some kind of white behavior, but we can glean resources and ideas from a whole lot of places. We just need to look at what works, what's successful in the world. Dr. Anderson, he points, we can learn from a lot of the Asians. You know, yeah, they may be exclusive and have issues of including blacks into the plan, but it doesn't mean that we can't stand back, look at what's working for Arabs, Asians, Hispanics, and glean that behavior, because it's working for them. It can work for us. It doesn't have to. What works is not a color-bound idea. What works, right? Works. It makes it even more powerful if it works for everybody, regardless of color, age, sex. Okay, very important. Let me finish up with some words on wisdom here. We're going to talk even tomorrow. Maybe we'll get into a leadership uh, series, but I think we'll have story time first. Now that I'm thinking of it, we got to check in, see how Tom's doing. He's right now. We've kind of left him, so we got to check in on Uncle Tom. But we're going to get into a leadership series soon. But let's first talk about wisdom, because I think blacks have a lot of knowledge. If you're a black like me, you stayed in school, got your high school diploma, and you're conditioned to sit. I'm conditioned to sit, receive knowledge, trust that it's right, and if I apply it right, I'm going to be successful. So I've got a lot of knowledge. I got a lot of disciplines. I excel in whatever it is I'm working with, but so focus is sometimes a problem with me. But wisdom, dictionary.com has some portions of that definition of wisdom. It's knowledge of what is true coupled with just action. So we got a lot of, I think blacks don't lack for knowing. We lack for right doing. Uh, so some of these things we're going to talk about more detailed and focused as we continue our study. Coming up on the halfway mark here at Racial Change. Listen, I'm almost at the bottom of my time. I don't want to hold you hostage. Again, I'm Tomlin's Nyback, day 171. Out of the way. I'll see you tomorrow for 365 days towards racial change. Bye-bye.